Welcome back to another episode of Those Two Dudes, guys. It is that dude, Ruben. I am rolling solo today on today's episode, but I'm not solo because I have a very special guest. I have with me Miss Rebecca from Gridiron Rush. Rebecca, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for joining us. I know we're going to talk all things college football. We're going to dive into another conference. Obviously, it's the Pac12. That's kind of something up your alley. But tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you and where can everyone find you?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm Rebecca. You guys can find me on Instagram at gridiron_rush19. I have my own blog called Gridiron Rush, and then I write for 3 other blogs, the Undrafted Network, Sports as Told by a Girl, and OXP Media.
Dude, love it. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're super busy. You're enrolled at ASU, so appreciate you taking the time. But what better way to be enrolled at a university and talking about that conference? So before we dive into that, obviously it's going to be all about the Pac-12. We did want to talk briefly on the kind of our initial reactions on the top 25 that was just released. What are your initial thoughts on all that?
Yeah, so I believe that was released earlier in the week on Monday. The number one team was not a shocker to me, and I'm sure it was not a shocker to a lot of college football fans, and that was Alabama. They did win the national championship game back in January, big time against Ohio State. In my opinion, overall, I think Nick Saban has been producing such a dominant team down in Tuscaloosa, which is attracting so many high school football players to come to their program and play college football for Saban. And listen, I think, in my opinion, Alabama is the best team in college football, and they've been proving that season after season. Over the past few years. Just last year, they actually had 2 Heisman candidates in Mac Jones and Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith ended up taking the trophy at the end of the night. So with me, before the polls are already released, I kind of have an idea of who's going to be in that number 1 spot. If they're not at number 1, they're probably going to be at number 2. The number 2 spot belongs to Oklahoma. And there's been a lot of interesting news with the Sooners this past offseason. I know that you're a Texas Longhorns fan.
Yeah.
The Sooners and the Longhorns are joining the SEC conference, which is really exciting, obviously. So they do still have their contract with the Big 12 until 2025, I believe. Once 2025 hits, they will be entering the SEC. The SEC currently has 14 teams. With those 2 schools, they will have 16 teams. So I think it will be interesting to see what's going to happen, because this move could potentially lead other teams moving to other conferences. And as we've seen over the past couple months throughout the summer, there's been a lot of changes happening in the college football world with college football playoffs, teams changing conferences and all those other things happening. So college football is evolving day by day, minute by minute at this point. And then I believe the 3rd team is Clemson. Can't wait to watch them play. Obviously, they are without Trevor Lawrence. Loved watching him play at Clemson. He's with Jacksonville, so wish him the best of luck there. Can't wait to see what Coach Dabio Swinney is going to do with them. And then 4 is Ohio State. They are without quarterback Justin Fields. He's with the Bears. But I would say the most shocking to me was probably at that number 2 spot, which was Oklahoma. But what I've noticed every year, there's been a pattern. We always see Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Georgia kind of shuffling around within that top 1 to 5 spot. But those are the top 5 teams that we are consistently seeing every season, but those are also the best teams in college football. So they deserve to be in those higher spots. And one more thing is for the Pac-12 conference, actually, there's 5 teams in the top 25, which shocked me. As you know, SEC is more of the dominant conference, but there are 5 teams. We have Oregon at 11, USC at 15, Washington at 20, Utah at 24, and ASU at 25. So really happy for those 5 teams. 2 Pac-12 teams in the top 15, and Oregon and USC.
Yeah. The Pac-12 is they're very well established in the top 25. So it is cool to see them there. Kind of like you said, right? Alabama being number 1 seems like a no-brainer. We didn't have to wait for the polls to know that they'd be number 1, and it's crazy because they're going to be with a new quarterback. Obviously, it's a named quarterback in Bryce Young, but they're just a well-run machine over there in Alabama. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I believe I think he's still with the team, Paul Tyson. So hopefully we'll get to see him play, but it looks like Bryce Young is going to be their guy.
Yeah. So with that, I am interested to see with Clemson. I know they are number 3, I think. Yeah. I feel like they're maybe a little bit overrated just at number 3, right? I maybe put them at 6 or 7 just because they've been dominant, but they've been dominant because they had Trevor Lawrence, right? So this is the first year without him. So we have no idea really what to expect. I'm not saying that they won't be a great team. We'll see how that goes. Obviously, what I've noticed in the polls is I think the Big 12 and the ACC, they're very top heavy, right? Yeah. You have, in the Big 12, you have Oklahoma, and then you have Iowa State, and then a little bit down below, you have UT, and then that's it. And then with the ACC, you have Clemson, you have North Carolina, then halfway down the line, you have Miami, and then that's it. So, I don't know if that's going to help them or hurt them come playoff time, as with these one-loss teams. If they win the conference with 1 loss, I don't know if that's going to help for the playoff. Also, I do think that the polls are showing some love for kind of the lesser-known conferences from what happened last season. So, for instance, Cincinnati, right there at number 8. That's a really good team, and I think they obviously have the best chance to make the playoffs, being at that spot. But there's still love for teams like Louisiana and Coastal Carolina that are in the top 25. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm excited for it. So, hey, let's dive right in. Let's talk all things Pac-12. Let's start with the North. With the teams there. Tell me, what are your thoughts? Who are kind of the top teams in the North, and who's taking it?
So I grew up watching Pac-12 football. Obviously, my team is in the Pac-12. Well, I have 2 teams now. I'm a huge USC fan, grew up in Southern California, but now I also cheer on the Sun Devils since I do go to ASU Walter Cronkite. So I'm excited to watch Pac-12 this upcoming season. On the North side, I'm really liking the way Oregon's looking, and I'm liking the way Washington's looking. Over the past few seasons, I've noticed a pattern. There's usually 3 really great teams in the North, and in my opinion, that is Washington, Oregon, and Stanford. Stanford hasn't been doing too well of a good job these past few seasons. Loved watching Christian McCaffrey play at Stanford. I felt like ever since he left, everything kind of started to change a little bit with that program. But for my top 2 teams for the North, I'm going to have to go with the reigning Pac-12 champs, which is the Oregon Ducks, and probably the Washington Huskies.
Okay. Makes sense. And look, I'm on the same boat with you. I have my top 2 teams are Oregon and Washington. Oregon, they're gearing up for their 3rd straight conference title. Their only question is at quarterback, but they got the 6th best recruiting class in the country. They're bringing back 6 people on the D, also bringing back All-American defensive end, Kayvon Thibodeau. And I think what helps out is they do have a fairly easy schedule. Their schedule and Washington's schedule kind of mirrors each other in terms of conference play and non-conference, because they're non-conference. They both play quote unquote perennial Big Ten team. With Oregon's, though, they're a little bit tougher. They're playing at Ohio State, and that's early on. So that's going to be the real measuring stick right off the bat for Oregon, how well this team can be. I don't see them winning that game. However, I see that being the only loss for Oregon this entire season. So we'll see. We'll see. And then with Washington, again, similar. They're playing against Michigan. So that's theirs. I mean, big name, maybe not, big record. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. And then, of course, we'll definitely look forward to that Washington and Oregon game later in the year. That's actually in Seattle. So I know the crowd will be pumped for that. Do you maybe have any dark horses in the North, or who could overtake it?
I mean, possibly Stanford, maybe Cal. Hadn't really thought about that actually. Probably those two teams. How about you?
Yeah, kind of the same. I think I mean, my third place will come down to Cal and Stanford. I have Stanford a notch above Cal, but they both have brutal schedules.
Yeah.
They both have brutal schedules, so we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know, but I mean, if I had to bet money, I guess maybe Cal could be a dark horse with Stanford right behind them. But yeah, those two are neck and neck, and then there's a huge gap between those two, and then Washington State and Oregon State at the very bottom. So, all right, cool. So yeah, we both got Oregon and Washington. Pretty simple there. Let's jump over to the South now. I know this is a homer division for you, so tell me who are your top teams? Tell me your thoughts.
Well, I'm gonna have to go with USC on this one and Utah. USC, love watching them play, obviously. Excited to see what Keaton Slovis has in store for the Trojans this upcoming season. USC did add 2 new quarterbacks to the quarterback room in Miller Moss and Jackson Dart. So it'll be fun watching them take some snaps and watching them down the road in the future, evolving as quarterbacks. But one thing that I do see with USC that has been a consistent issue that is frustrating as a fan is their discipline issues. And that falls on leadership and the head coach. And honestly, I don't know if I see a future with Coach Helton for the Trojans down the line. This might potentially be his last season, but discipline is a huge issue. They rake up so many penalties per game that is just so frustrating to watch. It seems like every other play, the whistle's blowing and there's a flag, whether it be offsides, unsportsmanlike conduct, false starts, things like that. So I think they need to get a control and handle on that. With Utah, I'm excited to watch them play. I know last year they were having a lot of COVID issues, so they ended up starting a little bit later than the other Pac-12 teams, but they do have a new quarterback in Charlie Brewer, who is the Baylor Bears quarterback. So excited to watch him play, see what he does for the Utes. And then probably sitting at number 3, possibly ASU. I know that they're going through quite a bit of a hard time right now. There's been a lot of things happening within their football program. So, but I would say my top 2 for the South is USC and Utah.
Okay. Well, I know you mentioned 3 teams there, and I have those same 3 teams, except 2 and 3 I have reversed. But we both agree on USC, and we both agree that I think Coach Helton's seat he's on the hot seat right now.
Yep.
He's on the hot seat right now because USC, they set high standards. They haven't really been met. So, it's burning right now. But I think this is one of their best chance to win the conference entirely. Like you said, they got Slovis at QB. He's coming back for his junior year. He's got some elite receivers, and they got the transfer running back from my Texas Longhorns, Ingram. So we'll see how that goes. They do have a bit of a softer schedule. They got the game at Arizona State, kind of like Oregon, I think, or like Oregon's loss coming at Ohio State. That'd be their only loss. USC is playing at Notre Dame. I think maybe, if they can run the gauntlet of the conference, which I think should be okay, I think the game at Notre Dame would be their only loss.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think this is a good team. At least they're set up to be a good team. And I'm with Arizona State. I'm rolling Arizona State at number 2. I think Herm Edwards has done a great shot. Like you said, they do have some kind of turmoil inside. But, if that can be cleared up, if that can be fixed, I think they'll be good. They got QB Jaden Daniels coming back, along with, I think, arguably the best O-line in the conference. Also returning 9 starters on the defense. Like I mentioned, they are hosting USC at home. ASU is a fun place to be at for home games. But they do have tough road games against at Washington and at Utah. And then with my third pick, like you said, I do have Utah for that same reason. Charlie Brewer, he lit it up at Baylor. He's at Utah now. They do have a tough schedule they got back-to-back USC and Arizona State, and then they got Oregon coming in later in the season. But I think Utah could absolutely be a dark horse of this conference. I think the South is a little bit stronger between Arizona State and Utah. They could definitely challenge USC, but hey, that's exciting. That really is exciting, and I'm pumped for them. Speaking of hot seats, I know we talked about Coach Helton on the hot seat. Kind of going a little bit further down the division, I'm going to say in UCLA, I think Chip Kelly might be on the hot seat. I don't know. I mean, he's been there for a little bit and just hasn't had a ton of success.
No, I completely agree with you. UCLA has not been doing too well over the past couple of seasons. And I kind of felt like after Josh Rosen left, everything kind of shifted. I would have thought they would have performed fairly well with Coach Chip Kelly, but I don't know what's going on with them. If they don't start winning more ball games this season, Coach Kelly probably won't be with the program. But they do have a pretty decent quarterback. He has his moments, but I just don't see consistency.
Yeah, 100%. They got Darian Thompson-Robinson. He's a dual quarterback. Outside looking in, it looks like he's the perfect quarterback for that fit. But I know he is turnover prone. I think if he can fix himself, they'll be fine. They do have a tough schedule. They're playing against LSU in the non-conference game, obviously and also playing both Oregon and Washington from the South. So they kind of drew the short end of the stick there. I think Chip Kelly is on the hot seat. His leash is probably a little bit longer just because of his past history with Pac-12 success. But still, I know those boosters in UCLA are, they can't be the happiest. Perfect. So, okay, awesome. So we have our two teams. Cool. So we're heading to the Pac-12 championship. So tell me, I know you got Oregon and USC. Who's taking this whole thing?
So for the Pac-12 championship, it's going to be Oregon and USC. Rematch of last season. I think I'm going to be honest. I'm going to have to go with Oregon on this one. I think they're gonna come back, win the whole thing again, be crowned the Pac-12 Kings once again. And it was funny last season, actually, before the season started in 2020, I had written a blog post on the Pac-12 and who I thought was going to go to the championship and who I thought was going to win. And I put Oregon and USC, with Oregon winning it all. But what was funny about that was Oregon wasn't even supposed to be in the Pac-12 championship game last season. It was supposed to be Washington. But due to COVID issues, Oregon got in that game and ended up beating the Trojans. Sad game for me, obviously, a USC fan, but difficult game to watch. But, Oregon obviously was a better team and they played a better game.
Yeah, that's true. They weren't even supposed to be there. I also have Oregon and USC. I have USC winning. I have USC winning for the simple fact of Coach Helton needs this job. He needs this job. I think Slovis is going to have a great year this year at QB. I think they are going to figure things out offensively. I think it's just going to make sense, and they will be able to work. And I think this is kind of their better year to win this conference because Oregon is in transition of getting a quarterback, a stable quarterback, which their offense revolves around that quarterback. So if it's any year, I think it's going to be this year. So I do have USC winning the conference. But I know we talked about hot seats aside of Coach Helton and Chip Kelly. Do you think there's anybody else that's on the hot seat in this conference?
Not that I can think of right now. I mean, I know on the north side, Washington State and Oregon State, they haven't been performing that well. But as of now, I mean, not really. I mean, I would say my top two is probably going to be USC, UCLA. And then I don't know what's going on with ASU, with their coaching staff right now, with all the stuff that they're going through. So I don't know if they're going to be going through like coaching changes, if they're going to be hiring a new head coach. But I'm going to have to probably just go with USC and UCLA on this one.
Okay. Yeah. Same here. I know you brought up Washington State. I feel like they're still trying to figure it out post Mike Leach. So, they're kind of, and no one's really, there's no serious pressure for them to have success. So I think there's longer leashes there. And then Oregon State, they're having to compete against Oregon in state for recruits. So, I mean, I definitely feel bad for them.
Yeah.
So obviously, we talked about Oregon, USC going to the conference championship. Do you see any team from the Pac-12 making the playoffs this year?
Gosh, if I have to pick, I think USC might have a good chance. Possibly Oregon. But I think out of all the teams, probably USC, hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't think a team from the Pac-12 will make it, but possibly USC.
I think if there is going to be a team, it is going to be USC, for the sole fact that I don't necessarily think a one-loss Pac-12 team could make the playoff, and I don't see Oregon beating Ohio State.
Yeah.
So that I would have to roll with my money with USC, which is probably why I'm in my mind. I'm hoping USC wins, because I want to see a team from the Pac-12 be represented in the playoffs. So yeah, super excited for that. But yeah, that's the Pac-12. I'm super pumped for it. Are there any non-conference or conference games involving the Pac-12 you're looking forward to this season?
I know in week 1, which is actually in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
So super excited about that. There is Georgia and Clemson. I think that one's going to be a good game. But I know that Georgia, I heard this week that some players did get injured. But excited to see JT Daniels play. He was an ex-USC quarterback. He didn't have the best freshman season at USC, 5-7 overall, no bowl appearance. Sophomore season, he ended up tearing his ACL season opener, which was sad. That's when Keenan Silvis took over. And then last season, his junior year, he transferred to Georgia, did fairly well. I think, there's big things in store this year for JT Daniels, possibly a Heisman candidate. So excited to watch him play. I think Clemson will take that game, though. Next week is week 0. So that's going to be fun. UCLA is playing next weekend, so hopefully I can watch that game. Of course, Alabama, Auburn. That one's always a fun game to watch. USC, Notre Dame. Love watching that game. And then my favorite rivalry is USC, UCLA. So fun games ahead of this season. Excited for this season. 2 weeks away.
Yeah, super pumped. I know you're talking about JT Daniels. We did a SEC preview, and we hyped up JT Daniels a lot, and especially with that Georgia team, how much better they are with him under center. So I know he was coming off that ACL tear, but yeah, they look primed. And again, we had the same conversation. If this was any year that another team other than Alabama could take the SEC, it'd be this year with Georgia, because Alabama's going through transition with the new quarterback.
Yep.
So we'll see, but all exciting things. I think the most important thing, though, Rebecca, is that football's back.
Yeah.
That's the biggest takeaway out of all this. So super pumped about that. Cool. Well, hey, we look forward to the Pac-12. I really appreciate you joining me today. Tell me tell us again, where can everybody find you?
Yes. So on Instagram, it is Gridiron_Rush19. And then I do have a Facebook that is Gridiron Rush. So those are the 2 platforms you can find me on. And then my blog is gridironrush.com if you want to check out my work.
Love it. And then as always, guys, you can follow us at Those Two Dudes Podcast on YouTube, Those Two Dudes on at Those Two Dude Podcast on Instagram, Those Two Dudes on YouTube and Spotify and Facebook. Shout us out, like and subscribe, tell all your friends, download, whatever you got to do. Let us know. It's been that dude, Ruben. Thanks, Rebecca, for everything. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Everybody out there, like and subscribe. Go follow Rebecca. Go check us out. Click the link. Push the button. Let's go.